Hey guys, I'm Lorana Hoopes. I forgot to tell you this yesterday when I did this video for you, but I am both an author and a narrator. And so yesterday I brought you a video with some of the changes that ACX is no longer paying for your promotional codes and some options to think about. I wanted to address a couple of things because I actually had a couple of pieces that I was slightly off on. So I'm going to pull up my screen real quick so you guys can see this. And then there's some things I want to show you on how you can upload your own files. So the first thing, let me move some of these around because it's right where I need to see. Okay, so the first thing is yesterday I told you that ACX gives you 25 codes for the US and 25 for the UK until you sell 100 books. I was actually mistaken on that. It does give you 50 codes. So you get 50 codes for the US, you get 50 codes for the UK, then you have to sell 100 audiobooks of that particular book before you can get the other 50 codes. So ACX is still giving you a total of 200 codes if you can sell 100 books, but they're no longer paying for those 200 codes. So up until yesterday, they would give you those 100 promotional codes for US and 100 promotional codes for UK, and you would get paid for them as sales. That is what's changing and no longer happening, which is a really hard hit to authors and especially to narrators who are doing royalty share. So none of these codes will count as sales for you. Findaway Voices only actually gives you 30 codes per book unless you go with their exclusive distribution, and then you get 100 codes. Now I'm going to talk a little bit more about their exclusive distribution because it's not the same as ACX, so you don't have to freak out quite as much. Findaway Voices codes, I told you could be used in the US, UK, and either Canada or Australia, but I was wrong. It's actually the US, Canada, and Australia, but not the UK. So if you go with Findaway Voices, you're going to lose your ability to give free codes to your UK listeners. I don't know how many UK listeners you have, so that's something that you need to kind of take into account. The other big thing that might be a sticky point as to why you might want to still stay exclusive with ACX is that reviewers cannot leave reviews on Audible unless they purchase your book or they use an ACX code. So with ACX codes, they can go on to Audible and they can leave a review. And Audible, I still think, is probably one of the biggest platforms. If you go with non-exclusive to ACX, you do not get any ACX codes, and the Findaway codes that you get will not allow a reviewer to leave a review on Audible. So that might be enough to sway some of you to keep it with ACX exclusive. I don't really know. The big thing now is that you really need to be very particular with those codes that you're giving out. And it sounds really harsh. And if you're a reviewer, I hope you understand that we were able to give away a lot of codes because they also paid us. Now they don't. And so these codes really are to be used to leave a review. And if you're not going to leave a review, don't take a code, because then you're really cutting down the author's ability to get their book visible and reviews out there. And that sounds really bad. And so this affects listeners as well as it does authors and narrators. Okay, so I told you that there were two options yesterday. You can stay with ACX, absolutely, and you can be exclusive to ACX. My suggestion going forward still is to do pay per hour if you can afford it. If you can find a good narrator who's willing to do for 100 or 150 or even 200, depending on how big your book is, I think you can make that money back. If you go with ACX exclusive, you're going to get 40% of your sales. So it'll take you less time probably to earn that money back if you go exclusive with ACX. It might take you a little longer if you go wide with Findaway Voices, but there's also some benefits in the long run. So we'll talk about that a little bit today. But I told you there were a couple of options when you upload to Findaway Voices. So I wanted to walk you through a couple of things. So the first thing is I did a little more researching, and there's still some stuff that's kind of hard to find on Findaway Voices. You can actually hire your own narrator who is, as long as they're in the system, and you can pay them less than the $450. That is if you use one of their promoted narrators. So what's tricky about Findaway Voices is as a narrator on ACX, I could go in and I could search for books and I could say, okay, what's a clean romance that's out? I could look at it, I could record a review, and I could send it to you. That's not the way Findaway Voices works. So Findaway Voices will take your book and kind of what you're looking for, and then they will cull through their narrators, and they'll only send the option to record to 6 or 7 narrators, and then you'll get those 6 or 7 samples back. Now, the hope behind that is that they'll be better than what you were getting from ACX when anybody could audition for your book. But it makes it really hard for narrators to find your book, right? So it's really helpful if you already have a narrator that you're working with and you can reach out to them and say, you know, hey, I want to do this book. Can we put it up together? So when you do that, you have a couple of options. You can upload through ACX first and mark non-exclusive. And then your process through ACX is relatively the same. And I'll show you kind of what I mean by getting your files. And so once your narrator records all of your files and they're there, actually, let me flip over. So I've got my, one of my books up. This is one of my books that I actually did royalty share on at the beginning before I started doing my own books. So you will notice here where it says produce audiobook, I can scroll down and all of these credits that Mark did, I can download, okay? So if you want to take your files wide and you start in ACX, it's a really simple, easy process. You can go into those books and you can download the files because you've paid for them, you own them. Do not do this if you did royalty share because you will get caught and you'll get in so much trouble. But if you paid per hour, then you own these files and you can download them, okay? So you can download all of these files and then you can go to Findaway Voices, okay? So I'm gonna click over here and you're going to, once you set up all your stuff, you do have to set up your accounts and everything, you're gonna hit new project. Now here is where you can click work with a narrator and you have a couple of options. If you know your narrator's information, you can put it in there. However, I tried this last night with my name and email and it never sent anything to me. So I'm not sure if there's something going wonky with it right now or what's going on with that. So I would suggest avoiding this if at all possible. You can also, if you're looking for royalty share, Findaway Voices now does royalty share, but just like with ACX, I don't think you're gonna find a lot of quality narrators willing to do it because basically what royalty share means is I'm doing all the work up front in hopes that your book is gonna do well, that it's gonna pay me. And so there really isn't a lot of incentive for good narrators to do that because it's a lot of time and not a guarantee back. But the option is there. So you can click this and you can have them search for narrators for you and they can send it to you. And if you don't like any of those narrators, you're not stuck with this book. You can take it down and you can try it a different way. But if you have already put your book up with ACX and you have all your files, then you go over here to sell existing audiobook, okay? You click on that. Then you're gonna put your title in. So I'm gonna use my Love on the Line that I've had before and you create. Okay, you're gonna read through the agreement, which basically tells you, you know, that you have revisions and how you're compensated. I get paid directly to my bank account. I think they also do PayPal and a couple of other options, but Findaway Voices is legit. You will get paid. They're not, you know, some weird fly-by-night company. And so you read through all of this, right, of course, and then you're going to hit agree and continue. Okay, and you can download the agreement if you want to go through it with a fine-tooth comb. Then you're going to get to edit project metadata. Okay, if you have your cover, and I don't have it saved on this computer, so I can't upload it, but it's the same size as what you would use on ACX. Okay, so you can use the same cover. You can put in your subtitle. If it's part of a series, you can click yes, and then you can put your description in. Okay, when you get down here, you're the publisher. If you're indie published. You're also the author, and then your narrator's name would go here. Okay, so in my case, I would put my name here, and my name here. But if for some of my authors, like if Mandy's doing this, she's gonna write Mandy Blake. She's gonna put Mandy Blake here, and then she's gonna put my name over here. Additional metadata, it's unabridged. Obviously, it's English. Keywords, this is actually really cool. You can add like almost 1,000 keywords. And so you can put in like, okay, mine is Christian and it's romance and it's clean and wholesome and it's sports and let's see, it's football and it's second chance So you can actually put all of those in, okay? If you've won any awards, then you can put your awards in. You're going to want to click whether it's fiction or nonfiction. You're going to want to click your grade level. Adult does not mean erotica. It just means it's not meant for kids originally as your audience. Okay, and then this is the other cool thing. ACX, I don't actually know how they pick your categories. They say they pull them from Amazon, and yet when I try to find where my audiobooks have gone, I can't find them in the categories. But with Findaway Voices, you can actually pick your categories, okay? So you can put in here, like I would say mine is Christian, and it's romance. That's my primary category, okay? But then you can also go over here and you can type in a whole bunch of other ones. So I can say it's Christian general, and I can say it's romance general, and I can say it's clean and wholesome, and I can say it's fiction, romance, sports, and I can say it's just fiction, sports. So this is a really cool thing about Findaway Voices is you can actually put in a whole bunch of other bisects. I don't know if it tells you how many. For most retailers is 3 bisects, so only add the most relevant ones, but it'll let you add additional ones. They'll pick the top 3. Okay, audiobook ISBN. If you don't have one, leave this blank. They'll give that to you. They'll also give you this library one. But here's where you would put your ebook ISBN if you've already put it up on Amazon, okay? Don't worry about this one, I don't think. And if you have a print ISBN, you can put that here. Don't worry about the print ISBN library. They'll fill that in too. Has this audiobook ever been available for purchase on any platform before? If your book is already on ACX and you're moving it non-exclusive, you're going to want to hit yes. And then it'll ask you when it was released and when would you like it to be available through Findaway Voices. If not, you're going to hit no. And again, it's going to ask you, when do you want it to release? Okay. Then you're going to put in your copyright year. So I wrote this in 2020. I am the owner. Oh, look, I've already filled it out. My audio is also 2020 and I am the copyright owner. Okay. Now, here's the other really cool thing about Findaway Voices. Findaway Voices lets you set the price. So you can't really set it right now because they wait and they do it based on how big your book is, right? But there are a couple. Audible does set their own prices and pay out based on net receipts. So that's kind of sad because I had in my thing that with Audible you could set your price, but I guess you can't. So Audible will still set their prices and Downpour, but you can set your price for all other venues, okay? And it does give you sort of a recommendation once you put your files up. I wish I had the book totally up so I could show you, but it'll give you a recommendation. So it'll say like, my books typically fall between 3 and 4 hours. It'll recommend $9.99. Whereas on ACX, that would be a $14.99 for a $19.99 book, right? So then I have the option. I can still price it at $19.99 and I'm going to make, 45 to 50%, but I'm probably not going to get as many sales. Or I can price it at $9.99 and I might get a lot more people who will buy it. So that's one nice thing because with ACX and Audible, they get those tokens or whatever where they get a book for free, but a lot of them aren't going to use them on small books because that credit is a credit regardless of what price book they use it on. So they're going to use it on a really big book. Probably not going to buy your book, right? But if you have the ability to set the price lower, then they're more inclined to take a chance on your book, okay? So you can set your retail price, you can set your library price, and notice that they recommend bumping your library price up just like they do for print books if you have that ability, or you do your ebooks that go to libraries. Okay, then you would hit Save Changes. And then it'll take you to the next part up here, which is distribution. Now here's the kind of interesting part. So when you get to this part, you can choose standard distribution or you can choose Voices Plus. And what that basically means is standard distribution means you're not exclusive to Findaway Voices. You can put your audiobook anywhere you want. You can put it on your website. You can take it to, I think somebody was talking about Stories Realms or whatever. Any of these other places, you can take your files, because again, you own those files if you paid for them, and you can put them anywhere, okay? Whether you choose standard distribution or Voices Plus, you're still gonna get into all of their networks, right? That doesn't change. The nice thing about Voices Plus is they do a couple of extra things if you do Voices Plus. So let me see if I have it pulled up still. No, let me click on it. Okay, so program details with Voices Plus. They take care of your distribution, making sure it's delivered everywhere and providing you with real-time sales reports for certain distributors. Now, not all of them report real-time, but some of them do. We'll get you the best terms, protect your audiobook from piracy, and you'll be first in line for marketing and promotional campaigns. So you still keep 80% of your royalties. Your royalties don't change whether you do standard or Voices Plus, but you get piracy protection. So in other words, they kind of look out for where your book is, and if it's not where it should be, if it's where it should not be, they'll take it down, do the process to take it down. They give you 100 codes instead of just the normal 30. And you're the first in line for marketing and promotional campaign opportunities like Authors Direct Beta. This is new since I use them, so I'm not super familiar with Authors Direct Beta. And they're always adding new features and tools. So the really cool thing about their exclusivity is if you start with Findaway Voices, and this is, I'll talk more about this in a minute, you can have them send to Audible and you can have them send to Amazon just like you would through ACX. So you can click this and be exclusive through Findaway Voices. You can get those 100 codes, and then their exclusivity is only locked in for a year, but they give you the first 6 months to decide if you really want to stay exclusive. So you can start exclusive, and then let's say at 5 months in, you decide you don't want to be exclusive, you can switch back, right? So you're only locked in from months 6 to 12, and then it renews every 6 months. So at a year, you could decide, do I want to stay exclusive? Do I want to pull it? And then 6 months later, you can decide again. So my feeling is, especially if you can start with Findaway Voices versus with ACX, go this route. This is what I will plan to do with mine, just because I don't know of anywhere else I would put my files at this point. And if I decide that something new pops up and I want to be able to put my files, I can easily go in and switch my distribution. But I'm going to get those 100 codes. Now, I don't know that I'm necessarily going to give out 100 codes because I'm not getting paid for them. Yes, they're great reviews, but these people can leave on Nook. They can leave on iBooks. They can leave on Amazon. They're not going to be able to leave on Audible, which is where I think most of the people are looking for reviews. So these codes in that instant aren't really that beneficial to me, but I'm going to use a lot of them as giveaways, right? So I can give you a free copy of my audiobook or some sort of incentives. Anyway, so you have those options. My recommendation, if you can start with just Findaway Voices and not have to go through ACX, is to use Voices Plus. But again, you decide. But here's all the places that it goes to. And I'm not sure about all of these. I didn't see sales from all of these when I was using Findaway, but that was also a year ago. But you'll notice it goes to Apple Books. And remember I talked about yesterday, you actually get more percentage going through Findaway Voices than you do going through ACX, even exclusive. So if you go through ACX exclusive, you get 40%. If you go through Findaway Voices, you get 45% at Apple. They will send to Audible. They will send to audiobooks, Audiobooks Now, Audiobooks NZ, Authors Direct. So maybe they don't send to Amazon Books, which might be another thing that you want to look at, whether you want to do a hybrid of ACX and Findaway Voices. I'm not sure how many Amazon Books, what their ebook thing is. Here's Chirp, right? Chirp is the big one I talked about yesterday, where you can get in and start doing like book bubs for your ebooks, which is really awesome. Here's Kobo, here's Nook, here's Google Play was up here, right? And then there's a whole bunch of other. Biblioteca is actually one that I saw a lot of my sales go through. And then there's another one. And again, some of these are new. They didn't have Audiobooks NZ or Authors Direct when I was there. I can't remember what the other one was, but we'll find it in a second because I'll talk about it, okay? And then you'll come down here. If your title is currently claimed on ACX, then you have to click yes. And what that does is they will then kick Audible out of your distribution up here, okay? And then you'll have to be going to two different dashboards. So you'll go to ACX to see your Audible sales. You'll go to Findaway Voices to see everything else. Now, when I was with them, they did have an option where you could start that way, and then you could have Findaway Voices move your book over from ACX. I don't know if they still offer that, but it's definitely a thought that you could start in ACX and then have Findaway Voices move it over so it's all on one dashboard. And there's a reason you might want to do that, and I'll talk about that in a second. If it's not, then you can click no, okay? You can also click on this if you want to take any of them out. I don't know why you would, because the whole point of going wide is to be in as many places as you can. But if you want to take some of them out, then you would click here, okay? All right, and so then you need to make sure you include the URL link to either the print or the ebook on Amazon. Hopefully you know how to do that. If you're an author, you're pretty savvy about doing that for the most part. Okay, and then here is where you would upload your audio. Now, this is where it gets kind of tricky if you don't go through ACX first. And it's really more depending on who you choose for your narrator. I've been doing this long enough that I know what the requirements are, and I know when I do my files, they're going to meet ACX criteria and they're going to meet Findaway Voices criteria. But if you're working with a newer narrator who's not super familiar, I would not recommend starting with ACX, because then you've got that fail-safe of ACX saying, no, this doesn't work, here's how you fix it. Whereas if you skip that and then your narrator doesn't really know what they're doing, it's going to make it even longer for your book to come out, okay? But then you're going to just click to add your files. So after you've downloaded all those files from ACX, you're going to click on here, okay? Now, obviously, these are not my normal ones, but so I label mine. So this is The Billionaire Secret. I'm going to click Opening Credits, okay? Bam, it's uploaded. Then you look at your front matter. I don't typically, as a narrator, put front matter in because most people who listen to audiobooks tell me it's not there. So I just skip this one, okay? Then you go to your body matter. Now, here's where it's kind of important. You have to put your chapters in order. So in ACX, they only let you do one in each blank. Say if you go back over here, here's chapter 3, here's chapter 4. But in Findaway Voices, you're gonna just add them. So you wanna make sure that you add them in order, or else you're gonna have to be moving your files around. So if I'm looking, I'm gonna say TBS chapter 1, and I'm gonna open that one, and it's gonna load. Okay, and then once it loads, it's a little slow loading. This is my slower computer. Normally, this is the computer I just do my audiobook recording and editing on, and that's all this computer does. But it was much easier to show you on this. Okay, so, but if you put them out of order, and I'll show what happens if you do that. So let's say that I put chapter 23 in. Actually, I probably can put more than one. Let's see. Yes, okay, so let's say I have all of these, okay, and I want to add all of these at once, okay? I can put them all in at once, but you'll notice that this is going to say chapter 1, and then the next one is chapter 23, and that's going to be a problem, right? Because if I left it this way, that's the way my book would go out. It would start with chapter 1, and then it would jump to chapter 23, and then it would go to chapter 22, and that would be a mess. But if I'm remembering correctly, once these load, it will give me the option to move them, okay? So make sure that your narrator is labeling them in a way that it's really easy for you to tell. I always put some sort of acronym of what the book is and then the chapter. So TBS stands for The Billionaire Secret, chapter 23, chapter 22. And I do that because I have so many files, audio files on my computer, that if I didn't, I wouldn't know where I'm going with them. But make sure that your narrator does something like this so that it's super easy for you to know which file goes in which place. Okay, I clicked too many of them because that's going to take a second to load up. So once we finish with this, and I'll come back to this in a second, then you're going to put your back matter in. This would be anything following the text. And again, this isn't really something that most fiction authors use. Maybe this is more nonfiction, but we don't usually put a lot here. Maybe if you had like a sneak peek of the next book, I might put that in here as back matter, so that hopefully if they listen to book 1, maybe they'll listen to the beginning of book 2 and like it enough to go purchase book 2. And then you're going to have your closing credits, which that's the same as ACX. And then you're going to have your retail sample. Okay, and your narrator should know to put retail sample in there. It needs to be 5 minutes or less. That's not any different from ACX. Okay, so let's see if I can move some of these. Okay, so let's see here's chapter 22 and see how it's out of order. So I think, is this my download button or is this my move button? That's my download button. I don't want to download it again. There is a way that I can move it. It may not be giving me all the options because it's still downloading other ones. So I'll come back to this in a second. Okay, so we're going to click out of audio for just a second, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, then up at the top, you've got your overview. That's going to tell you everything that you've put in. Okay, distributing to, again, you can confirm your 43 selections, so it goes to 43 places. You can change your distribution strategy here. And even after you publish, you can come in and change your distribution strategy if you would like. And then here is where you'll get your giveaway codes. Now, obviously, I don't have giveaway codes right now because this book isn't live. I would get 30 codes if I go standard distribution. If I upgrade to Voices Plus, I get 70 more. So I get a total of 100, which we have talked about. The following retailers will allow your listeners to leave a review without having bought the book there. So they can leave it on Apple, they can leave it on Google, they can leave it on Amazon, but not Audible, Kobo, Scribd, if they have the free trial, Downpour, and of course, things like Goodreads. All right, so let's see if my audio has popped back up yet. Okay, so now we can see that they're here, but they're out of order, okay? So I can now move them, all right? I can click right here on this little thing and I can move them. So if I put them in the wrong order, not all hope is lost, all right? I can play it if I wanna listen to it. Chapter 9. Peyton was still sleeping when Helen arrived the next morning. Sorry, I had my headphones plugged in. Tempted to be late to work to talk to her. Max still had a lot on his plate to catch up on him. Okay, so I can listen to it if I want to make sure. I can replace it right here if I find that's the wrong file. I can add audio notes. So if this is more if you're using Findaway Voices like ACX where you're listening to it and then you're going to leave notes for your narrator. I'll talk about that in a second. If I want to download it and if I want to trash it. Okay, so if I want to delete it, I can click on that and it'll go away. So it's actually super simple to get it uploaded. And the reason that I would suggest going this route and having these files from ACX, especially if you're new and starting, is because Findaway Voices will do this process for you like ACX, but they charge a 30% fee. So on top of what you would pay your narrator per hour, they're gonna charge you 30% on top of that. That goes into them doing sort of what ACX does, doing the quality assurance, making sure that everything's right. Now they're going to run that at the end, even with these files, but it's much more in depth if you skip the ACX part and you go directly through Findaway Voices and your narrator doesn't know what they're doing. Okay. So my suggestion, if you're just getting started, or if you're working with a narrator who is new, is to go ahead and start your book in ACX. Okay. Start it in ACX. If you want to go non-exclusive, just start it non-exclusive. Go through this whole system of, the 15-minute check, then you upload it. ACX has a quality assurance. I don't know if I can see it on any of these, but we'll see, because I'm not sure that I had put these up early enough. But they've added this beta quality check where you can click on it and it'll tell you if there's anything wrong with your file, which is really good because sometimes ACX cuts my files off and I think I've uploaded the whole thing, but it, for some reason, only took part of it and it stops weirdly in the middle of a chapter. So you can click on that button, your narrator can, and they'll tell you if there's anything wrong with any of your tracks that would cause it to be flagged and held up. So if your narrator is not super savvy and hasn't been doing this for a while, then starting with ACX to get that fail-safe help and not have to pay for it is probably your better option. Because while you can get that same stuff with Findaway Voices, you're gonna pay that extra 30%. If, however, your narrator is like me and they've been doing this for a while and they know what their files are, then don't worry about it. You can go into your audiobook directly like I did. Once this is all in, then you can upload all the file and then submit it. It's still going to go through a quality assurance check and they'll let you know if anything's wrong, but you're not having to pay for that extra fee. So if you don't know a narrator and you're wanting to look for somebody on Findaway Voices, that 30% fee is already included in the pay per hour charge. So that's another thing that's a little tricky and to think about if you're going to do pay per hour with a narrator on Findaway Voices, where you go hire a narrator route instead of just uploading your files, then you're going to end up paying that 30% fee, whether it's upfront or kind of snuck into the price, which I think is a little not so nice. So let me go back to my sheet here and we'll adjust this. Okay, So really your option going forward, just forget about royalty share at this point, because my assumption is you're not going to find a lot of quality narrators who are going to do royalty share for you. There will be some who will do royalty share plus, and I talked about that a little bit yesterday. I don't think that's a great move for authors because you're having to pay upfront and you're giving away half of your sales for 7 years. But if you really want to work with somebody who charges more than you can afford, that might be an option for you, okay? My recommendation, if you can afford it, is to pay per hour. Find somebody who's willing to start a little lower, like I am, and then, you know, hopefully you'll start seeing some sales from audiobooks that you can use to then pay for the next audiobook. I do still think audiobooks are going to make you money, just not as fast as they were when you were getting paid with the codes. So let's recap a couple of things. If you go ACX and you go exclusive, you're going to get 40% on iBooks, Amazon, and Audible. That's if you use the pay per hour. Obviously, if you do royalty share, you don't. But I thought about this yesterday too. If you do royalty share, you're only getting 20% of your profits. If you do pay per hour, even if you go non-exclusive, you're getting 25% of your profits. So you're actually getting more of your profits even if you go the non-exclusive route by paying per hour ahead of time than if you do royalty share. The difference in royalty share for authors is you don't pay any money up front, right? But because you don't pay any money up front, your narrators aren't probably going to want to work for free either. So you're going to find less decent narrators who will be willing to do royalty share, whether you do ACX or Findaway Voices, okay? So you can still stay exclusive with ACX, and there are definitely some benefits. Yesterday I told you that I couldn't see very many of them, but there are a couple, and I'll make sure and revisit them for you. So one of them is that you get a higher percentage on Amazon and Audible. You actually get a lower percentage on iBooks, but you get a higher percentage on Amazon and Audible. Findaway Voices, 45% on iBooks, so you get a little bit more on iBooks, 25% on Audible. I need to actually check this. I'm not sure that they distribute to Amazon Books, so I'm still going to do some research on that. 45 to 50% on other retailers' ability to get into libraries. I'm going to click over here real quick on this because I forgot to show this. This is Hoopla, and I actually had a lot of payments through Hoopla because it's kind of like a library checkout program, but I do want you to understand that it's really small. So like my book that ran like 300 minutes, I got paid 49 cents every time someone checked it out. So like my Wishing Stone books that were small, but I typically had 6 or 7 checkouts every day. And I only had 6 books up at the time. Now I have 26 books I can put up. So yes, this looks really small and you're like, oh my gosh, that's awful. But if you think about the fact that most books are actually falling probably about here, 75 cents to $1. If you are getting checkouts from Hoopla and you're getting multiple checkouts a day on multiple books, this is passive income that can add up really quickly. Because once you pay your hour, right, pay per hour for your narrator, then you don't have to do anything else with these. These can sit here forever and make you money. And it does add up. So I do believe you will be able to make back what you pay for a narrator, but it is going to take you a little bit longer. And that's why I cautioned you yesterday to just go in with that mindset. Like, this is not going to be something you're going to make back in the first 2 months, but it is probably something you'll make back before the end of the first year. Okay, possibly. Okay, so let's jump back over here. So you get into those libraries, and libraries are getting a lot bigger with people wanting to check out audiobooks. And so it's free for the patrons who check it out because the library purchases your book at that higher percentage, and then they charge the checkout per day. Okay, so if you say exclusive with ACX, you're locked in for 7 years. Now I talked about yesterday, there's a possibility that you can be unexclusive after 1 year. I'm still waiting to hear back from them. I haven't received a response from my emails, multiple emails I sent them yesterday. But let's assume that you're just locked in for 7 years. So if you go with ACX, you're stuck there for 7 years. You can't do the BookBub deals. You can't get into libraries. You can't do any of that for 7 years. With Findaway Voices, you're not locked in ever. Okay, so you can move your books anytime. You can put them in Findaway Voices, hit their 43 retailers. put them in ACX if you want to as well. I'm not sure why you would want to, but you could have them in the stories, dreams, or whatever. If some new Audible site pops up, you can put them there. You can have them on your website where you could actually, if you have a store, you can actually put them up there if you know how to download the files and get them to customers, and you could have your own store. So you can have your books anywhere. If you do Voices Plus, you are locked in for a year, but you have 6 months to move. So the first 6 months, you can decide, I don't want to stay with this. I want to go back to standard distribution. But should you decide, okay, it's great, and then 8 months into it, you're like, oh, I really want to move it, you only have 4 more months you have to wait instead of 7 years you have to wait. Okay, so that's a definite plus for Findaway Voices. Drawback, ACX is going to give you more codes, right? 50 codes for US and UK, and then 50 more after you sell 100 books. Findaway Voices is only going to give you 30 codes if it's standard distribution. They'll give you 100 codes if you're exclusive. I don't, and I know there will probably be scammers out here, so this may change, just know that. But I don't think at this time, if you started in the Voices Plus and you got the 100 codes and then you decided to change it, I don't think they penalize you for using those extra codes, okay? I'm sure if people start gaming the system that they will. So for those of you trying to cheat the system, please don't. That's not what they're for. You don't get paid for them anyway. My recommendation as an author, though, is guard these codes, right? Especially if you're going to go with only getting 30, because if you go non-exclusive with ACX, you don't get any codes from ACX, but you will get them from Findaway Voices. I would probably give out, for me, I'm just thinking, I'm probably going to give out 20 codes for each book to people I know will leave a review. And the other 10 codes I'm going to save and I'm going to use as giveaways, as incentives, as whatever, right? So I'm going to be really picky with who I give my review codes to, and I'm going to keep track. So if you take a review code and you don't leave a review, I'm not going to give you another one, right? And as a reviewer, you should understand that this is our livelihood. So this is not a place for you to just suck up free codes and listen to a bunch of free books. Like, leaving a review is not that hard. Okay, so ACX versus Findaway Voices. Starting with ACX is definitely going to be a lot simpler, especially if your narrator is not sure what they're doing or hasn't done this a lot. Maybe I should say that better. Because then you can upload everything through ACX just like you normally would. You've got that fail safe. You don't have to pay extra for it. And you can just unclick from Audible when you're uploading to Findaway Voices, or you can leave it that you have it on ACX, and then they'll probably reach out to you and tell you that they can move it over, which I think they're still doing that, but that was a year ago, so I don't know. With Findaway Voices, you don't have that ease of being able to check the files, but if you're working with a narrator like myself who knows what they're doing, you don't really have to worry about that, right? What you do have is your narrator then will have to tally up the price of the book versus with ACX, it'll kind of tell you, and it'll have an invoice at the end. So when I do a book for somebody pay per hour, at the end, it sends them a thing that says, hey, you owe your narrator $600, right? And then they reach out to me and I send them an invoice and they pay me. And then once I've checked that I've received that payment, I release the files and they'll actually go to sale. If you skip that part with ACX, your narrator then is going to have to sort of tally up how much that's going to be to do your invoicing, unless there's something with Findaway Voices. Well, no, because you'd have to go the other route. So yeah, your narrator's going to have to do that. So my one word of caution is this: be very careful that your narrator is not overcharging you. The narrator should only charge you for the finished time of the book. So even though it may take me 25 hours to record, edit, and upload your book, I cannot charge you for 25 hours. If your book is 5 hours, I can charge you for 5 hours, okay? And that is why most narrators worth their salt don't start as low as I am at $100 an hour, because when you think about it, like, oh, you're like, wow, $500, that doesn't seem bad. But then you take $500 and you divide it by the 25 hours of time, and it's really not that much, okay? But I'm pretty streamlined in my process, and that's why I can offer that right now. I won't stay at $100 forever because it isn't, right? But if you work that all out, it's not very great. And that's why most of your narrators charge $250, $300, $400 an hour, because they can only charge you for the finished time of the book, not all of the time that goes into recording and editing, okay? So I said that you could set your Audible price, but you can't do that. I don't know However, though, and this is what's tricky, if you set your price for everything else at like $9.99, if Audible bases it off of that, or if Audible bases it off of the length of the book, in which case your Audible price might still be $14.99. And that I'm not sure of. I will do some more information digging. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you see how easy it is to take your files from ACX and then upload them yourself. It's actually super simple. And if the file works on ACX, it'll work on Findaway Voices. So you've got a couple of options there. You can start with ACX, start non-exclusive, get all of those files from your narrator, and then go upload them yourself, which is probably the best option. Or if your narrator is super savvy, then you can just go straight to Findaway Voices, have everything on one desktop. Just keep in mind that your narrator should only charge you for the length of the book. Now, because it's sometimes a book it goes over, I might round up a little bit. So if it ends up being 6 hours and 45 minutes, I'm probably going to tell you it's 6.5 hours, because I don't know how to do like a 45-minute part of that. Whereas with ACX, you know, you'd be able to do that. But I think most of your narrators, if they're good people, are going to take that into consideration. They're going to just round to whatever the easiest thing is, right? Either like a few dollars up or a few dollars down. It wouldn't make a huge difference anyway. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has answered some more questions for some of you. I hope this gives you a little bit more to think about as you're deciding if you're going to go exclusive with ACX or non-exclusive and include Findaway Voices. Again, the biggest thing is start putting some money away. I don't think audiobook sales are going to go away. I think they're still going to pick up. I think it's still a good time to get into audiobooks. It's just going to mean a little more money up front for you. But I'm sure that there are other narrators like myself who are willing to start lower to help you guys out before we start raising fees. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it set at every 100. So every 100 books, my price will go up a little bit. Right now, and I'm not counting my own books because I don't think that's fair. So right now I'm setting at like 6. Okay, so there's plenty of time to get in on that 100 fee. And if obviously, if you locked in a contract with me through ACX, then I'm not going to raise the price after we've locked in a set rate either. So even if you are in that contract and then all of a sudden I hit my 100th book, you're still going to be getting that $100 per hour. If you are wanting to work with me, I will let you know that my queue is kind of large right now. And I think it's because, you know, people see the value in it. But I'm absolutely willing to take a look at your book to do pay per hour or royalty share plus. And I'm telling people right now to look towards fall as their end date, but I will probably get them finished before that. And so I keep them up to date as I'm going through. So hopefully this helps. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. You can email me at loranahoopes@gmail.com. And that's just LORANAHOOPES@gmail.com. That's my author email. Or you can hit me up on Facebook. It's under Lorena Hannah Hoopes. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions that I can answer. And if I don't know, I'll try to help you find the answer. Okay. So hopefully this helps, gives you more to think about. I'm going to stop share so I can figure out how to stop the video at the end. And if I come up with anything else, I'll definitely do another video for you. If you guys have questions that you would like answered, I'll do another video for you. But thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you guys soon.